Hi there. So it's Halloween, not only one of the creepiest times of the year, but also a day where I feel almost obliged to give you a countdown, because who doesn't like creepy things? And things rarely get weirder than those parts in video games. Those parts where the game suddenly starts questioning what genre it belongs to. Disturbing moments are one thing, but disturbing levels, a more sustained attempt at unnerving you, are something else. Which is what I'm taking a crack at today. Now, if you've been with me on this channel for a really long time, you'll know I've tackled this before about 3 years ago. But hey, it wasn't very good back then, and I've played a lot of new games in the last 3 years. So I guess you could say that in more than one way, I'm better equipped this time round. Using Pikmin is effectively organised chaos. Sure, you might think you've got some control over where they're going, but each Pikmin has got its own, slightly dumb AI. So you can try and arrange them as you like, but it's rarely going to go perfectly. Especially when the game dumps an invincible one-hit kill jelly steamroller ghost in front of you. The submerged castle in Pikmin 2 is all about absolute impending fear. At some point, it's hard really to say when, the water wraith will drop down from the ceiling and make things a lot harder for you. You can try and retrieve all the treasures before he appears, but you'll likely have to get a few with the water wraith constantly straying a little too close for comfort. It's even scarier when, like I did, you don't know he exists. There's not a lot to tell you that the submerged castle is any different to any other cave in the game, other than maybe how you can't take any other Pikmin than Blue with you. But when you see it, you'll shit those bricks. Japan and horror is a match made in heaven. Or maybe hell. Might be all their mythology or their overactive imagination, but my god can they pump out the scary shit. And when they apply this to a game that isn't all that creepy, hot damn. The sunken ship in Ohkami sits in the otherwise picturesque Ryashima coast like a hairy spider on a pizza. You know you've got to deal with it at some point, you just don't want to. It's full to the brim with all of the archetypal scary Japanese things, ranging from the creepy dolls, to treasure chest monsters, and a close-up with the ghost of the Spider Queen. But the further you go, the worse it gets. Later down the line, someone invites 2 hermit crabs who share the body of a dead shark between them. And when you flood the sunken ship, you're introduced to the giant pulsating seaweed monster who gets very creative in how it tries to stop you. I mean, Japan, come on now. At least in Super Mario World, when you had a sunken ship, they just filled it full of ghosts. Compare and contrast the effectiveness of a fuckload of ghosts against a handy dandy seaweed monster. Quality over quantity, my friend. Can I get away with putting Bioshock on a list about non-horror games? I mean, it's a little bit scary in places, but most of the horror comes from psychological moral stuff during the game. Hey, you wanna argue? Walking around in any Bioshock game, you always get the sense that all hell could break loose at a moment's notice. And it does more often than not. But there are moments when the tension is stacked so high that the payoff is something you'll notice. The medical pavilion in the first game actually starts off quite tamely. Look, they even give you a Tommy gun before you get there proper. But it doesn't take long for things to go south.
Now look at me! Look at me!
It's one of those rare areas in the game where it feels like people are stalking you from all sides. You can't predict where you're going to run into next, and the constant ramblings of Dr. Steinman don't help either. Eventually you come across, painless dental? Okay, sounds fun. Dry ice is a bit much, might want to tone that down a little. Hey, where did that guy come from? Silly Bioshock, corpses don't need dentist work. And oh sweet, speedy hacker, now I can hack things even faster. Oh what the fuck? But we've still got the big guy himself, Dr. Steinman. You know how the medic from Team Fortress 2 is a bit of a psycho? Dr. Steinman wrote the fucking book on being a psycho.
That one's too fat! This one too tall! This one too symmetrical!
Yeah, I'm just about done here. We do many things in video games. We save princesses from giant evil lizards. We clear line after line of colourful blocks. We even screw around with the very fabric of time. But there is one thing that we don't do, under any circumstances. People of the internet, we don't go to Ravenholm. I was told a lot about Half-Life 2 before playing it. I was told that Gordon Freeman was a badass physician. I was told that headcrab zombies are terrifying. And I was told that Half-Life 2 is the best game ever made, and anyone who thinks otherwise deserves a lonely death. But what I wasn't told anything about was Ravenholm. Most of Half-Life 2 is either big open spaces or overthrown city battlefields, but Ravenholm throws an almighty curveball. It's a rundown, abandoned mining town, infested with headcrabs and headcrab zombies. Everywhere you go, everything is far more closed in, way more narrow and close quarters than at any point previously in the game, which when you've got screaming flaming zombies staggering towards you, it's not ideal to be honest. Ravenholm is overlooked by Father Grigory, a psychotic survivor who has littered Ravenholm with traps that you can use to combat the horde of zombies. And they really do come in handy, especially because of something else that people didn't tell me about. Because while headcrab zombies are the iconic enemy of Half-Life 2, they're not the scariest. After all, they tend to stagger towards you kinda slowly. What if they were fast? This is where the definition of disturbing comes into its own. There's not a lot of inherently scary moments in Call of Duty. It's not like it tries to be much more than an FPS series. But no Russian from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is famous for all the wrong reasons. Why? Well, I think that's enough video games for today. Oh man, this mission sent shockwaves throughout the world. If you ever wanted some fuel to the video games are bad for everyone argument, then look no further than mowing down wave after wave of innocent civilians at a Russian airport. Until the security services show up halfway through the mission, there's literally no challenge. But here's where things get interesting. You don't actually have to kill any civilians to beat the mission, meaning that joining in with the Russian terrorists is all up to you. All down to the thoughts in your head. And whichever way you swing it, that's pretty friggin' creepy. The only thing that dampens how disturbing this mission is, if you're not up for taking part in a massacre, you can always choose to skip it entirely. I'd say this is a bit of a cop-out, but yeah, maybe not. Hey, did you know that former detectives and undercover operatives have nightmares too? Except theirs don't tend to be about falling forever or forgetting to do homework. In the case of Max Payne, he's got some serious problems. Quite a lot of the story in Max Payne is told in a comic book style, basically pictures at the expense of proper cutscenes, but the nightmare levels show just how else you can paint a picture of what's gone on. The first nightmare level has you wandering through a maze of corridors with your previously murdered wife's desperate pleas and screams keeping you company. It doesn't take long for things to go crazy with the door boarding itself up, and a huge blood trail maze complete with baby crying and moon jumping. I want to see Mark Wahlberg do that. You even get the chance to see your previously slaughtered baby daughter's blood-splattered room with dead spelt out with letter blocks. Not a horror game, remember. Third-person shooter, says Wikipedia, and Wikipedia's word is final. The second nightmare is more of the same. More anguished cries from your dead wife, more dead baby's room, but now someone set things on fire. But then the game doesn't just break the fourth wall, it tears it down.
You're in a computer game, Max.
You can't just... No, that makes me feel bad now. At any rate, you're then given another trippy corridor, and now a three-dimensional blood trail maze. God damn it, there's no let-up, is there? It's a couple of levels that are just draped in symbolism. I'm pretty sure that if you wanted to, you could analyse each and every small detail of these levels and find even more hidden meanings. Frankly, I'm just glad there's no jump scares. There are games where you might expect something weird and disturbing to come up. Silent Hill, for example, is going to have at least a couple of moments where things get creepy. But one place perhaps where you wouldn't anticipate disturbing content would be none other than the mother of childhood franchises, Pokemon. I mean, sure, you might think that every Pokemon game is going to have a weird area to it nowadays, but back in the first generation of Pokemon games, Lavender Town set up one frightening trend. Pokemon is wholesome fun. You don't kill any Pokemon, you KO them so they faint. Everything's so vibrant and colourful to the point where the world around you feels incredibly welcoming. That is, until you reach Lavender Town. Every man, his dog and his collection of stamps knew that Lavender Town will be here somewhere. It's frankly the iconic what the fuck level in video games. Coming the hell out of nowhere, Lavender Town is a small town tucked away in Kanto that houses the dead ghosts of Pokemon. You thought the Pokemon couldn't die? Hell no, you just didn't kill them during your playthrough. Accompanied by sickeningly cheerful music and a general atmosphere of unrest, Lavender Town built itself a reputation of urban legends and creepypastas, ranging from the high-pitched music causing child suicides in Japan to all manner of fourth wall-breaking fan games. It's probably not the most disturbing place on this list, but it is amongst the most jarring. The Legend of Zelda series is hardly a stranger to creepy levels. Frankly, there's hardly a game that goes by without making you think twice about a level and then sob into your pillow at night. But the vast majority of them pale in comparison to one in particular, hidden beneath a vibrant town, housing some of the worst horrors in the series, the bottom of the well in Ocarina of Time. Where the hell do you start with this place? You don't want to be venturing your way down to the bottom of any well, let alone a well that is jam-packed with some of the scariest enemies ever put in a Zelda game. If the floor masters don't do it for you, then maybe the tactically hidden redeads will. Or how about how half the area is covered in invisible pits and walls? The finest example being the hole just under the giant Torture X thing. And ruling over all of this is Dead Hand, an enemy that still baffles me as to how this thing was first conceived by people with stable minds, and second, allowed to stay in an E-rated game. And you know the best bit? Maybe I shouldn't tell you this. From a technical standpoint, you never actually have to go to the bottom of the well. I mean, not having the Lens of Truth makes the Shadow Temple and the rest of the game a lot harder, but it is possible. What it means is, this embodiment of all creepy shit in Zelda, the fuel of so many childhood nightmares, is technically optional. How about that? You can learn a lot about a game from its title. For example, I can tell from looking at Batman Arkham Asylum that this game involves Batman, the rich guy in a cape. That it's set in the city of Arkham, and that there's an asylum involved in there somewhere. And you know what you get with an asylum? Prostitutes! That's something else, isn't it? Arkham Asylum is home to some of the craziest psychos in the Batman universe, which is shorthand for all the bad guys in the game. You encounter all manner of evil supervillains during the game, but the cake is well and truly taken by the bad guy known as Scarecrow. If Arkham Asylum is Crazy Town, Scarecrow is the friggin' mayor. You get brief tastes of how loony this place is at times, but the moments where Scarecrow show up are the freakiest of all. This guy messes with your head big time, in a way that keeps you in the dark for a certain amount of time, and then hits you with a twist. For me, the best encounter is the very first one, mostly because it sets a precedent for the rest of the game. It starts off with Commissioner Gordon getting killed, and with someone screwing with your radio. You then enter the morgue, the absolute epicenter of craziness. Whispering voices, self-shutting hatches, and a general foreboding atmosphere. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Oh, don't do this. Might as well open up the body bags while I'm here because I'm asking for trouble. Oh, hi Dad, I thought you were dead. Oh, and hi Mum, you were definitely dead. And Scarecrow, don't think he was dead, that one makes sense. This is what these moments are all about. There's a certain amount of build-up that puts you on edge before something completely throws you straight off that edge and into the crazy madness stuff. It starts off subtle and then takes a one-way trip into Crazy Town. I reckon they should just release Scarecrow and be done with it. Might make things easier around Arkham Asylum. You'd think that as a sneaky thief person, you'd be the scariest thing out there. I mean, the things you can do to people without them even noticing would strike fear into anyone. But Thief has built a bit of a reputation for having at least one moment that'll send shivers down your spine. So when you enter the Shellbridge Cradle in Deadly Shadows and read about its history of being an orphanage, and then an insane asylum, and being set on fire, and then abandoned, you know, it kinda sets a tone. Wouldn't it be really funny if as soon as you entered Shellbridge Cradle, it was all just sunshines and rainbows? Would that be even scarier? I don't know, but just think about it. Outside it's nothing too jarring, it might as well be a run-of-the-mill haunted house. It does loom over you a little, but you know what you've signed up for, right? Wrong. The purpose of the cradle is never outlined in black and white. It's only when you find a note that states that it was an orphanage and an asylum at the same time that you realise this is somewhere you really don't want to be anymore. As you journey through, all you can hear is a vague smear of sound effects, maybe the occasional footstep that wasn't yours, or the clang of a gate closing. In fact, the first half of the level is almost completely empty. Nothing really comes after you, and you're left with a tension building to breaking point. It's only when you activate the generators that you know something's after you now. And I think that's the mastery of the Shellbridge Cradle. Nothing is merely presented to you in this level. Everything from the Cradle's backstory to your immediate surroundings are fed to you piece by piece. It's up to you in whatever conclusions you make in your mind as to what is truly going on. There's far more to this place than what I've mentioned here, but frankly, it's not a place I want to spoil too much, as this is by far and away the creepiest experience I've had in a video game. This has been RabbidLuigi, and if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go play some, like Animal Crossing, or Super Mario Sunshine, just something really harmless.
But this feels like a house with bad dreams.
I'm the ghost of top 10 videos on YouTube. It's a very niche market, but it pays pretty well. I am here to point out RabbidLuigi's socials that are very important if you give a shit what this guy says. There's also other videos you could be watching if you're after something less spooky. Unless it's an early video of his, in which case, don't. Top 10 goes to win!